Good to go? In 3, 2. Okay. What's up, friends? Thanks so much for coming. I'm James Robilotta. Some of you may have saw me at the NACUR, virtual NACUR conference. Maybe yes, no, maybe so. You did, of course. We bonded over that emphatically earlier. And I'm super excited to be getting to hang out with you all. Thanks for letting me come through. I don't know if you had a choice to come here today, but I'm excited that you are here. Today, well, I guess I can introduce myself a little bit more. I know right now I'm just some random attractive man talking to you, and you're like, well, we should get to know each other a little bit more. We were just talking about food. I just grabbed some lunch at Western Cafe. Is that it? Oldest place in town. I love going into towns and finding what's the spot that's been here forever that's only held up by love and grease. That's the spot I look for. And so that spot fit the bill for sure. But, so food's on the brain, and so I'll start by telling you, I have a lot of food quirks, things that I eat in unique ways. For example, the way that I eat pancakes is that, first off, you can get out of my face with a short stack of pancakes. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a larger man. I'm gonna eat 3 pancakes. And so when it comes to my pancakes, I'm an equal opportunist. Same amount of butter and syrup on each one. I'm not like the Bisquick box. You've all seen the Bisquick box, right? It's got the big stack of pancakes, little yellow pat of butter up top, the syrup just delicately dripping down the sides. Yay! No, I don't eat them that way because then you're cutting into a drier gradient of pancake, and that doesn't make any sense. I like my pancakes equally and adequately soaked with butter and syrup. Any of you all soak your pancakes in butter and syrup? Some of you do? There you go. Some of y'all do. Be proud. Be proud. Be proud, for sure. So after I get my pancakes soaked and stacked, what I do is I cut little triangles out all the way around, so then I have a star. Then I cut the points off the star, so I have another circle, and then I cut more triangles out. It's a very geometric eating experience. And I start that way because I need you to know from the jump that I'm a little bit weird, but I think we're all a little weird. So I'm wondering if you all, do any of you eat food in a unique way? Do you mash 2 random ingredients together? Do you eat things in color order or texture order or temperature order? Anything like that?
I used to compartmentalize I would finish up my vegetables, move on to the next, then move on to the next, and be very compartmentalized with my palate.
That's awesome. So you get the vegetables out of the way first, and then move on to the bigger and greater things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Do any of you eat Skittles in a color order or Starburst? No?
I just dip everything in ranch since I'm in the Midwest, so.
You dip everything in ranch?
Yep, that's that.
Ranch is a true religion out here. It's a Midwest religion.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. Now the border are the Dakotas the border? Are we just now the West here in Montana? Or you're not still the Midwest, right? Nothing middle about here. Yeah.
True West.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. So, well, that's fun, friends. I start that way because I want us to think about the way that we connect. And, we can think about the mission statement of RHA or the mission statement, the purpose of MSU, and if we wanted to, but sure, those things tie us together, but they're not. It's the stories that connect us a little bit more, and that's what I love my time when I was in RHA for that reason, is that it connected me to individuals, and so that was really special for me, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what we're going to talk about today is obviously leadership. And amongst leadership, there's this word that gets thrown around a lot. It's empowerment. You've heard the word empowerment. People love this word. They toss it around everywhere because it sounds really sexy, right? Sounds super impressive. It's one of those words that if I were to look at the Montana State University brochure, it's probably in there 17 times because here at Montana State University, we empower our students. That was written by some old white dude that says words like finance and research. But anyway, but that word's in there left and right, but we don't actually talk about what it means. We just kind of throw it around because it just sounds good. But we need to talk about it because empowerment is critical. Leadership is more action, less title, right? Leadership is more action, less title. It's not just congratulations, you got a title, high five, verbal butt slap, Title IX, high five, verbal butt slap, and just keep it moving, right? It's something more. It's a true action. And so empowerment is leadership in action in my eyes. And so let's break it down a little bit of what it means to talk about. Now let's talk about a little bit of what it means. Because, if we wanted to break it down in this way, I could use this example. For example, my friend, what's your name again? Tara. Tara, is it cool if I tell everybody a story about you?
Sure.
Great, thank you. I don't know if you know this about Tara, but Tara is a beast of an ice climber, okay? I'm talking like she genetically was produced to be an ice climber. Great-great-grandmother mountain is named after the woman, okay? Like, it's in her blood. So one day, Tara decides, hey, and by the way, stop me if I'm lying at any point. And so one day, Tara decides, hey, I want to have a program where we're going to go ice climbing. And we're going to teach people how to do this. It's going to be a really cool outdoor activity. And also, maybe we'll raise some money. Every like 20 feet that we'll climb, people can donate some more. It'll be a really cool way to do a cool thing, raise money for a good cause. And the rest of us are like, oh, shoot. We get to go ice climbing with Tara the ice climber? Hell yeah, I'm going to be in the building. So we all roll out, probably outside the building. But we all roll out. She's our natural leader. She's been there the most times. Tara's got all the right equipment. She's got years and years of experience. She's got genetics on her side. She's showing up with those spiky shoes. The rest of us are showing up in Birkenstocks and socks like we didn't know what to expect. But it doesn't matter. She's got us. Now, what she could do as the most experienced leader of this expedition, if she wanted, she could shoot up the mountain the fastest and then just pull the rest of us up. But that's not what leaders do. Leaders push, they don't pull. Leaders push, they don't pull, because if all she does is pull us up to the top of the mountain, then we're all going to go up and be like, oh, wow, this is really pretty. You don't know how we got here. Tara just like literally dragged us. Well, I guess as long as we're here. Hashtag mountain. But there's no sense of fulfillment. So instead, if Tara's at the back of the pack, pushing us up the mountain, teaching us along the way, giving us those skills, those tips, those tricks, along the way, telling us, hey, put your hand here, hey, use this with the rope, do this here, all those kind of things, we're climbing together. And we all get up to the top of the mountain together in one foul swoop. We're like, oh, shoot, we just did this. I just did this. I was a part of the success of this mission, which is ideally what everybody in your organization also wants to feel. That by the end of the year, they can look back and be like, oh, shoot, I could see where I contributed to this greatness this year. And if you can't tell where you contributed to the greatness of your organization, then you're probably checking out and burning out. And so when we think about this in leadership, especially today, especially here in the funkiness of 2020, this concept of pushing and not pulling is crucial because right now we feel like we have to do a lot of convincing. A lot of convincing of, hey, this isn't going to suck. Hey, this isn't going to be too bad. Hey, yeah, I know it's going to be different, but it's okay, and all that kind of stuff. We feel like we're doing a lot more selling. I don't know if you feel that this way, in the way that you're talking with each other and trying to come up with plans and trying to get residents involved, things like that. So if you wanted, you could pull them the whole time. Pulling sometimes looks like guilt tripping. Pulling sometimes looks like, listen, my supervisor told me I needed to have 5 people here. Can you please come? There's going to be pizza, or whatever, right? Like that kind of a situation. And so we're trying to switch it to this more of a pushing mentality. We're trying to push people because I have a good buddy of mine, and he talks about, his name is Justin Jones Fosu, and he talks about the concept. Have you all heard of the glass half full, glass half empty, yada, yada, yada? But he talks about, he's like, it's not about if the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. It's about how you fill the damn glass. And so right now, with all we're focusing on is what's going on with our glass and not how we're going to fill it, then we're just staying stagnant. And so working on how to encourage individuals to fill the glass is what we're trying to do this year in particular. That's what I see empowerment as, personally. And so how I want to talk about that is this. We're going to break it down into 3 categories. But before I do that, I want to throw it to you really quick and just hear, how has it been for you so far as leaders coming back to this campus and like trying to spark RHA up and whatever other involvements you're a part of and whatnot? How has it been so far for you? Have you noticed that people are interested? Do you feel like you're pulling teeth? Have you noticed? How are you finding it?
It feels to me personally like pulling teeth. I think it's half impersonal just because of the masks. And I think like the first interaction I'm having with a lot of people is like, can you put your mask on? And then I forget like, oh, I told this story a couple weeks ago. There were some girls dyeing their hair in a sink in my hall, and I was like, instead of like stopping to be like, what are you dyeing your hair? Like what color? All that kind of stuff. I was just like, put your mask and even like ask them about anything else. So I think just like making that jump is important. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, and trying to make the leap of more personal interactions than just focusing on the masks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing that. Other thoughts?
I agree with that. I think it's hurt me, especially socially, with masks, because when you're careful, people think you're not cool.
Yeah.
So it's overcoming that boundary while still making connections.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's weird that when our masks become like trends, we're like, how many masks? Am I supposed to have a mask that matches my outfit right now? How's this work? Right, like how do I make this somewhat a little more cool, but I'm still wearing a mask and you can't tell I'm laughing or smiling. Yeah, for sure. Any other thoughts? Great. So, when we think about this, thank you both for your answers. So when we think about this, what does this empowerment look like? I think it looks like a few things, and so let's talk about them. I think when we say we empower our members, we empower our fellow students, I think what we're saying is we challenge them, we motivate them, and we appreciate them. Challenge, motivate, appreciate, right? These are the three kind of like steps to, these are the three steps to empowering somebody. And so let's talk about challenging first, because challenging is weird. Challenge is a little bit awkward. Because again, they're your peers. And again, it's that idea of like, okay, I gotta tell you to put your mask on before I can even like, put your mask on. What's your name? It's just like a weird barrier. And so, so when we talk about this idea of challenging, I'll tell you a quick story. The man that you see before you today, delightfully gregarious, wonderfully charismatic, maybe a little obnoxious. Same guy that you see before you today, I showed up at college and I was absolutely miserable. Because I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know anybody there. I went to school 12 hours away from home. I'm born and raised in New York, went to school in North Carolina for undergrad, and I was the only one that talked funny. And so I remember my very first memory of college. I went out, that was like my first or second day. I was like, I could go to the dining hall, but we all know what the dining hall's serving. I was like, I'm in a new part of the country. I should do something different. So I went to Wendy's. Because I respect culture. I went to Wendy's and I rolled up to the counter. I was like, yeah, hey, how you doing? Sure, yeah, let me get a number 2, no mustard, no 1 inch with a large fry, large sweet tea, whatever that is, and a Frosty. And the woman looked me back in the eyes and she's like, I'm very sorry, sir, but all I got was hello. I was like, oh shit, here we go. But I didn't know anybody down there, and I didn't put myself out there a lot because it was in my head. If I ever saw people that I recognized, I wouldn't go and talk to them. Just because I was like, don't bother them, don't burden them, like, you know, like, just stay in your lane, bro, right? Tell myself all these stories. And so it wasn't until I had this RA, my RA's name was Tony, and Tony kept coming over, maybe a little bit too much. Are any of you all also RAs, or just the RHA front?
I'm an RD. I was an RA for 3 years.
You're
so.
an RD now,
Yeah.
okay, congratulations, that's amazing, I love it. I've been there, I was an RD for a number of years also. Go team. So, I drank the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
So for me, I had this RA, Tony, he came over a lot. One day I got a little sassy with Tony. I was like, hey Tony, man, listen, you're here a lot, bro. Aren't you, like, you're an RA, weren't you like put on this earth to like provide fun programs and maybe free pizza every once in a while? Like, isn't that why you exist, bro? Like, you keep coming over to our apartment a lot, Tony. What's going on in your apartment? Do you have a roommate conflict? Should we talk, Tony? Anyway, I got a little sassy with him. He enjoyed it. But I said, Tony, we got these basketball courts behind our on-campus apartments. Why don't we have a basketball program sometime? He's like, oh, shoot, James. He's like, that's actually a good idea. He's like, you play basketball, don't you? I was like, hell yeah, Tony, I ball. You kidding me? Ooh, I got a slow motion crossover. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big man. You got to give me a minute. So anyway, so we were out there. And we wound up having a really cool 3-on-3 tournament because Tony's like, oh, if you want to have a program, get some people out there, I'll get some food and some drinks, I'll have a program. Cool, sounds good. A couple weeks later, I had this banging 3-on-3 tournament. Tony came through with the pizza and the Gatorade, which was clutch. And we had an awesome program, and he come up to me after, he's like, James, he's like, this is so cool, dude. He's like, it's so awesome that you had this idea. If you have more ideas, you should come to our hall government meeting. Come to our hall government meeting on Monday, hall council, whatever it was called, hall government meeting on Monday, and come share some ideas. I said, okay, Tony. You want me to come to your little hall government meeting? I'll play you a game. So I went out, shared some ideas at the meeting. About 3/4 of the way through the meeting, the president of the organization said, whoa, who's this extremely attractive man with all these ideas? I said, it is I! And she said, you know, James, we actually have a position open. I think you should run for it. It's called our member at large position. I was like, you member at large position? What's that, a fat joke? Turns out it wasn't a fat joke. I ran for it against no one, still won. Doesn't matter, a win's a win. And I became the member at large of my building's hall government. I challenge you all to find a more insignificant student leader position here at Montana State, okay? You just can't do it, right? Like the president had all these bullet points they were supposed to do, VP, all these bullet points they were supposed to do in the Constitution. Member at large had one bullet point, shows up to meetings. Nailed it. But here's the thing, right when I became the member at large of my building's hall government, at that moment, I had a sense of purpose on that campus. Right? I had a place to be on Monday nights where people knew my name. I had a place to be on Monday nights where people wanted to hear my ideas. I had a place to be on Monday nights where if I missed a meeting, I would come back the next day and walk around campus and see somebody from there, and they'd be like, hey, James, we missed you last night. Are you doing okay? I had a place to be on Monday nights where people cared about me. And y'all, I'm not proud, but I needed that. I needed that because academics were not enough for me to fall in love with my school. See, I have a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology, all right? Not sure if you've noticed just yet, okay, but there's not one fish around me right now. I currently use my degree to impress dates at aquariums. It worked once. I put a ring on it. So, well, I asked her. So the thing is that academics were not enough for me to fall in love with my school. I needed something more, and so whole government did that for me. And so the thing is, I want to go back, though, is that Tony challenged me. I don't know if you caught the challenge. It was a very simple challenge. And it was basically like, oh, James, you have an idea? Cool. Well, what are you going to do to make that happen? It wasn't some crazy challenge like, oh, James, you want to have a basketball program? Well, why don't you go summit that mountain and come back and we'll see about your basketball program? No. It was a very subtle challenge where it was like, yes, that can happen, but you have to be a part of also making it happen if you want it to happen. And so the thing is that after that, Tony didn't micromanage me. He didn't walk around and be like, oh, he looks like he plays basketball. Oh, she looks like she plays basketball. Ask her, ask him. No, right? It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Good leaders don't micromanage. Great leaders never even think about it. And in that moment, had he micromanaged me, I probably would have felt belittled. I would have felt like, oh, this is dumb. Get off my back. You don't trust me. Right? So, as we are trying to challenge others around us to step up, we have to give them the opportunity to fail. Because if there's no stakes involved, why would anybody do anything? Have you all had roommates? You've had roommates? Cool. Just quick moment of honesty. In the room, are you the messy one or the clean one? Where do you think you fall? If I were to ask your roommate, what would they say? Mine would say I'm the messy one. That probably doesn't surprise you.
I'd be the clean one.
The clean one? Sure. There's no shame in this, friends. There's no shame. It's not a shameful question.
I think it depends on the week for me.
Depends on the week? Okay, excellent. How about you, friend? Where are you?
We're equal.
You're equal? Oh my God, that's so nice. Harmony. I love it. How about you, friend? Where are you at?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both? Okay. Based on how many markers you have. I love that you got a system. How about you, brother?
Just kind of is what it is sometimes.
It is what it is, man. Like I love when people give me a lot of details. So,
It's clean when I get around to it.
sure, that's it.
For a while, and then I do it again. And
Yeah.
then
It's kind of like this slow burn.
That's
Like,
what
I'll
it
figure
is,
that
yeah.
out. I'll figure it out. Yeah, I do respect that. I do respect that. So, but here's the thing though, when we apply the roommate philosophy or whatnot to what we're talking about today is that, and you can imagine this, if you ever have had people at two poles that you've lived with, if the messy roommate always leaves a bowl around or a glass around and never does the dishes, but then the clean roommate comes and does the dishes because they just get fed up, like, fine, I'll just do it, right? Then the messy person is being trained. Okay, cool. All I have to do is put my stuff down and somebody else will take care of it. Are you training the people in your organization the same way? Are you telling them that all they have to do is shout out an idea and then we'll just go ahead and do it for them? or are you making them an active participant in their idea, in the creation of community, in the creation of the organization or whatever you're working on? That is important. And that's something that Tony made me do, and that's something that we need to remember to do. Because leaders don't do everything, right? That's not leadership. That's selfishness, that's arrogance, that's whatever it is, right? Leaders inspire others. So, this is important. But it's also important for you to then recognize is that you're going to have some individuals in your organization, you'll have some individuals in your organization that don't want to do anything. All they want to be is the wise old sage in the back of the meeting shouting out ideas. Thank you, you're welcome, right? And so for those individuals, it's important to have conversations with them. Hard conversations, because oftentimes they're our friends. But conversations where we pull them aside and we challenge them. We challenge them to step up or step out. And if they're not going to step out, it's important for you to remember that you hold the pulse of the organization in your hand as a leader. And so, there's a really good reason why all the best gardeners in the world are constantly pruning their bushes. And it's because sometimes there's a lot of dead leaves. And a lot of times in our organizations, we have people that are holding us back and are not interested in putting forward the work, not interested in actually diving in. And so we need to have hard conversations with them of like, this may not be for you. I love you, can't wait to go to Applebee's with you tomorrow, but like, maybe we're not going to hang out at this meeting. You know what I mean? And a lot of times you're also setting them free. So it's often a favor. Even if it's an awkward conversation to have, a lot of times you're setting them free and you're also setting your organization free. And so yes, it's uncomfortable, but I was listening to Brene Brown the other day on a podcast, and she said, she's like, on my good days, I choose moments of uncomfortability over months of resentment. And that moment, that uncomfortable conversation, is way better than resenting that individual for the next 3 months. Right? That's why we often have to have hard conversations. So, that's what we're talking about when we talk about challenging. Y'all with me on that? Amazing. Would you say right now, as you look at your organization, would you say that you are pretty good at challenging individuals to step up, or do you kind of have a core 3 or 4 people that do everything? How are you feeling?
I don't know if our group's been together long enough to determine that yet.
Okay. What would you say the history of your organization has been?
We'd have to refer to Blake.
You all look at the historical one here. Usually there's pretty solid buy-in. Like there's a couple of folks that are maybe a little bit more spread thin. There are maybe the dead leaves, but overall it's usually a pretty compact enough group that we don't have to worry about it too much.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Maybe not dead, distracted, right? Overextended. Yeah, no, for sure. Attached to too many trees. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, good. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's great. I mean, that'd be an amazing thing to try to continue, for sure. That's every organization's dream is buy-in, right? Because if you're bought in, then we can do things. But a lot of people want change until they realize they have to do something about it. And that's the dirty secret about change, is that change and work are synonyms, basically. Right? In order for things to change, you have to put in the work. So, that's what we're talking about there. And that's where some of the motivation comes in. Challenge, motivate, appreciate. In order to fully motivate someone, you must know or learn what makes them tick. What is it that drives them? Why are they here? What drove them to the organization? Is it just because you're cool? Or is it something that you do? Is there an event that they love? Is there a potential that they see? Is there opportunity? What is it about it? That's the kind of thing that we need to try to tap into. Also learning what matters to them, right? Like, is there a cause that they believe in? Is there a group that they are a part of? Is there something that they had a really negative experience their first month of college and they want other people never to have that, and so they want to be a part of something? Or is there something around, like capital improvements that they see that could get done? Who knows? but figuring out what makes them tick is important. Because once you know what motivates somebody, then you have the opportunity to kind of put it into action and do what I like to call positive manipulation. Where you're actually saying like, hey, that's so cool that you're interested in that. You know, we could do that in our organization, or there's something you could do here, or we could start a committee, or we could do this. And you start to try to give them, empower them, motivate them to take the reins on something. Because that's the dream, right? The dream isn't that everybody's waiting for from their marching orders from the president of the organization. The dream is that people are self-starting and taking it out and then coming back and reporting and be like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we're working on, that's cool. And then your role is almost like the marionette artist as opposed to the person who is absolutely controlling everything. So with that being said, when we think about motivation, learning what makes people tick, that's a little tedious, but that is work worth doing because you have to actually have conversations with people. Because it is wrong for you to assume that since you're in the room, you all probably just get it. Since you came to the meeting, you're probably fully invested. That's just not the way it works. And so having some of those one-on-one conversations will be critical because you'll start to learn people's why within your organization, and then you can put that why to work. But we can't get there if we don't have the conversation. One of the worst things that humans can do, and humans most frequently do, is we hold people accountable to expectations they don't know we set for them. We do this in relationships, we do this in friendships, we do this with individuals that we interact with on a regular basis. We certainly do it with our peers and our student organizations. And so those moments are important to have those awkward conversations up front. They are tedious in the beginning, but they create efficiency on the back end. Y'all with me on that? What are some ways that you all try to get to know each other? I know it's masks, I know it's a little bit awkward, but like what are some ways that you're all trying to creatively come up with to try to build some of that community?
Well, we've gone on walks and sometimes we hang out individually with each other.
I love it. That's awesome. Anything else? And it's okay if not. But yeah, that's a good amount. I'm not like, what else? Do more. No, that's not where I'm at. I'm just curious. That's cool. When you go on walks, do you mean like go on hikes or like just kind of like putz around campus, like walk around downtown? Like what's a walk mean?
We walked downtown.
Okay, great.
We were gonna get ice cream, but then we didn't. But that's fine.
Shots fired.
There was a very, very large line.
We'll unpack that later. What's the, isn't there like a famous ice cream out here? Starts with a W?
Wilcoxon's, yeah.
Say it again?
Wilcoxon's.
Wilcoxon's, okay. I've seen that on like various signs driving around. Is it that good or just that well known?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Great.
that's a pretty good stamp of approval.
Pretty good stuff.
I don't get quite as passionate about our ice cream as like some schools.
There's a lot of good local ice cream shops too,
Mhm.
like
Okay.
outside of Wilcoxon's.
I still recommend Tillamook.
Yeah.
Tillamook?
Yeah.
Is there a Tillamook shop here?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
Just the good.
I'd be like, what are we doing right now? Why aren't we walking there? I don't care how long the line is. That's awesome. I've been to Tillamook out in Oregon. Great experience. And when in doubt, free cheese, right? Like, yeah, I will go around for another set of samples. That's awesome. So, but that's interesting to think about is what are the ways that we are trying to get to know each other. And those walks are awesome, right? Walks are, I mean, I'm a firm believer of wherever you normally congregate for your work, you should congregate somewhere else to get to know somebody, right? Because otherwise it's just always going to feel like work, right? And so yeah, go for walks, meet somewhere else on campus or whatever it is. I love that. And the last thing that we'll talk about is appreciation. Appreciation. And so when we think about appreciation, in the context of what we're doing here, appreciation is often something that we all know, that we love, that we like when it happens to us, Most of us like doing it to other people. Appreciation is a really beautiful word, but it's unfortunately crammed here at the end because that's what we also often do with it. Because every single one of us, for the most part, is a member of the Tired and Busy Club. How you know if you're a member of the Tired and Busy Club? If I were to come up to you next Wednesday and say, how are you? Would you respond tired and or busy? Then you're probably in the club, right? Your administrators are certainly in the club, right? Everybody, it's actually the largest club here on campus. There's just no leadership because no one has time. What was that?
Not RHA, the second biggest club on campus.
Exactly. Take that, student government. All right. So, but it's interesting to think about because since we're all members of the Tired and Busy Club, appreciation is one of those things that sometimes falls by the wayside because we forget about it. Because we're all just kind of in motion, right? We're thinking about deadlines, thinking about things we have to do, thinking about obligations, thinking about expectations, thinking about whatever, that we're just kind of moving around, and they're like, oh shoot, I should probably stop and thank somebody every once in a while. And it's critical. It's critical because appreciation leads to retention, right? Appreciation leads to retention. When someone knows that they are adding value, bringing value, and they're recognized for it, that makes them feel good. That makes them want to come back and do more. Now, when I say recognized, I'm not talking about like balloons out the ceiling. I'm not talking about gift cards to the local steakhouse, right? Like, it doesn't have to be anywhere near that grandiose, but we need to appreciate individuals where we can. That is important because it leads to retention. It makes people want to come back and encourages other people, hey, this organization makes me feel good, you should come in and you should feel good too. It's a good selling point also. So appreciation is critical, but also let's take it one layer deeper. Appreciation is very critical here in 2020, here in really the age of social media, because we all have determined that we have all allowed social media to kind of be the barometer for our self-worth. We've determined whether or not we are cool enough, funny enough, smart enough, hot enough, successful enough, fun enough, rich enough, classy enough, fashionista enough, whatever enough, based on a like, a click, a view, a screenshot, a retweet, a follow. And I get it, y'all, okay? Feel free to follow me on Instagram, James T. Robo, okay? I'm here for that validation morphine drip, y'all. But the thing is that we are allowing social media to be a barometer for our self-worth, but we're all losing. We are all losing in the process. We're spending so much time comparing ourselves to others that we are convincing ourselves that we are not enough and we need to be doing more. We need to be looking different. We need to be thinking this way. And it's not sparking confidence. It is not sparking hope. Instead, it's sparking anxiety. Instead, it's sparking depression. Instead, it's sparking these impacted self-esteems. And I'm not here shitting on social media, okay? I'm a heavy user of it, okay? I get my dose every day. Recently posted some great stuff on from my trip to Yellowstone yesterday, so we're out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we out here looking cute. But we need to recognize what it's doing to us. And how can we combat it? And how we combat it, and some of those the negative sides of it, we combat in real life by choosing to care, by showing up for individuals, by appreciating people. Because we all know a real life compliment feels way better than someone clicking the heart button on your Instagram post. Right? We know it feels way better. And it's, in general, social media I think has made us a lot of us a little bit skeptical of each other, right? It's like, I know what you scrolled through last night. Or like, I know, but it's just that idea, because we've all scrolled and liked the photo, that maybe we just liked it because we like felt bad for them, or we liked it because we're just like, it's, she's my friend, so I don't like it, or whatever, right? It's like this weird thing that's creating in our head. And so when we have the opportunity to appreciate each other in real life, we need to take it. Especially with the people in our organizations. And so, again, appreciation does not look like something grandiose, right? I'm not also telling you to celebrate mediocrity. Oh my God, Lisa took a step. Lisa's walking, right? Like, no. We don't need to celebrate mediocrity, but we need to show up for each other. That appreciation is critical because it leads to retention. One of my favorite quotes of all time is from Kanye West. It's nothing that he said in the last 7 years. It's definitely on his first or his second album, I forget. But he says simply this in one of his tracks. He says, if you admire somebody, you should go ahead and tell them. People never get the flowers where they can still smell them. Kanye West said, if you admire somebody, you should go ahead and tell them. People never get the flowers where they can still smell them. My friends, the time to appreciate each other is right now. In this moment. And so it just can't be at the end of the year, thanks for a great year. If we wait till then, we've missed up. We've missed it. So, when we think about this idea of empowerment, this big idea, leaders push, they don't pull, etc., etc. When we think about this idea, we break it down into the actionable steps of challenge, motivate, and appreciate. When we do that, we're able to empower individuals. We're able to start to lay the foundation down for the growth of our organization. So our legacy isn't just, look, it's the RHA bench. It'll be here for 70 years. Thanks to RHA for its bench. Now here, if you all have a bench on campus, that's incredible. I'm sure it's beautiful. But what I'm saying is that the legacy of RHA, of your RHA, can be how do you pass down your communication styles to others? How do you pass down the way you make people feel heard, the way you make people feel seen, the way you make people feel like they can create here? They can own a piece of this organization. We all know being involved in college is critical because when you're involved in college, you go from being someone who pays tuition to someone who uses tuition. You go from being a participant to an owner. How can you create that ownership for individuals in your organization? I think a lot of it happens through empowerment. And yes, sometimes it involves some hard conversations with some friends. But we got to do it. 2020 is a year of a lot of really important hard conversations. We sure as hell got to keep doing it. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. So, that's what we're talking about when I say this. I'll end on a quote because that's what professional speakers are supposed to do. But I also want to give you opportunity for us to have a conversation. I'm going to ask you some more questions about what's going on in your world and whatnot, but I'll end on this quote first. I was a Boy Scout for a long time, which is finally getting easier to admit. Thank you, Boy Scouts, for getting your stuff together. But they simply say this. I remember every single time that we would go camping, and every time they would go camping, or we would go camping, or we'd go hiking, my Scoutmaster would simply say this. He said, remember, gentlemen, we leave every place better than we found it. You've heard this quote before. But how are you doing it here? What are you doing to leave this place better than you found it? What are you doing to leave this place in the idea where it's not just like my man's cleaning schedule, right? Which is very similar to mine, by the way, so this is me knocking it, right? But it's not this idea of these constant waves of what's going on. Instead, the learning curve keeps going up and up because you're leaving the organization ready to be taken over after you leave. You're passing on what you've learned, you're empowering others to take the spots, and you're setting it up so it's not just like, okay, I graduated, good luck, right? You're starting to look in the next month or so, who are some individuals that can carry the torch for you after you leave, and how can you start having conversations with them at the beginning of the year to do that? That is empowerment. So, that's what I got for you, friends. For sure. So, first off, I'll give you some time to think of questions for me, if you have any. I'm an open book. We can talk about anything if you want. It can be leadership related or not leadership. It can be life stuff, whatever. But in general, from this talk, what are some things that stick out to you? Like, oh, shoot, I think we're doing that really well, or I think, oh, maybe we could do that a little bit differently. What was sparked for you?
Well,
Different?
I mean, I like how you talked about challenging people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I think I need to do more of, especially especially in our group setting, because I'm easily agreeable.
Okay, yeah. When you say agreeable, does that mean you're a hyper go with the flow, and then maybe you're not behind closed doors, and then by behind closed doors I mean behind your eyelids, you're like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, no, when people have an idea, I'll normally try to support it, even if it's against what like I believe.
Yeah,
So it's good to like step up and challenge them while supporting them at the same time.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. Super hard to do, friend, but super important. You'll sleep better at night for sure. Yeah. I think one thing I've noticed around that is that I'm a giant accommodator, right? Like my Achilles heel is like desperately wanting people to be my friend. And so that makes me more agreeable as well. And so in doing so, I sometimes get run over. I don't let my ideas shine. But how I've been trying to combat that is, what would be wrong with me also putting my idea out there and then people having options, right? It's not to contend, it's just like, hey, that is one way we can do it. We can say yes to someone's brain while we say maybe to their ideas, right? Like, I love that idea, that's really cool. Just another one for us to think about as we're out here, right? We all love eating at a diner or something like that. Like, let's get options here. But here's another potential thing for us to think about as we're trying to figure out what the course of action could be. Because when we don't do that, oftentimes it's the loudest person in the room who is perceived to be the leader, when in fact, they're actually just the loudest person in the room. So yeah. But I appreciate that. I love your self-awareness, man. Other things. What's something that we talked about that you're like, oh, this is really, that's something interesting I think we do really well, or maybe this is something we could try?
I think something I'm trying to focus on more this year, this is my second year as an RD, so like the like constant appreciation and like making it known to people. I think like totally it happens where we like get to the end of something and we're like, that was great, but like how can we like incorporate that in the now, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Finding fun ways to bring it into a staff meeting or a one-on-one or something like that. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. But it's hard because I don't know, we got stuff to do, right? We got an email list that's packed. We got this, that, and the other thing. And so yeah, it's easily forgotten about. But yeah, I appreciate that for sure. Madam President, how we feeling? I also have to call you that. I'm sorry, I just don't know your name. What's your name?
Madison.
Madison? That's ironic that it's kind of close. Madison President. Madison, how'd this feel for you?
So good.
Mhm.
Took some notes.
That's great. Is this your first year as president?
Yeah.
Amazing. Why did you want this role?
Well, I've been in hall council for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and I always enjoyed that and kind of being a leader in that position. And so this was kind of just a step up from that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. I love it. You excited? Nervous? Where do you think you fall on the scale? If excited is a 10 and nervous is a 1, like where would you put yourself on that scale?
An 8?
An 8? Let's get it, friends. Love it. That's awesome. Very cool. Do you all have any questions for me? It's totally fine if you don't. All right, cool. So let me ask the last question from me then, from me, I should say, is what is one thing that you're going to try to implement from this conversation into your life over the next week? What's one thing you'd love to try to implement? What does that look like? I'll give you a second to think about it.
I guess being more appreciative, that always goes further than you think. Just being like good work or thank you for things like that.
Mhm.
I definitely don't know if I'd go for the challenging route because I already challenge a little too much.
Okay, that's your role?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean that you feel like you challenge too much?
like, sometimes in RHA they have great ideas, like knock on the door, knock if, but then we gotta think about the corona and stuff, so we can't like encourage people to like associate like that, just coming in the rooms and hanging out.
Uh-huh.
Cause I mean, we would love to be able to do that, that'd be great, but like, that'd be bad in some cases, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm more realistic.
Yeah, but that, because you're more realistic, you find that you sometimes you're on the devil's advocate side of stuff.
Yeah, although, yeah, I try not to sometimes.
Sure, yeah. Gotcha. I mean, here's the thing. I think we all assume a role in an organization. And I think it's important that we recognize that we don't just need to assume that role because someone needs to, right? But because it is right in the moment. So there's nothing wrong with it. Like a devil's advocate is an extremely important place. Like someone's got to be like, well, just one quick thing, right? Like that's a really important thing. But I think it's also important for you to recognize that that's not what you need to sit around and wait for your opportunity for. That as long as you're also contributing in other ways, that's great, right? Stay versatile in the organization.
As someone who does that
Yeah,
pretty regularly, it's a lot about like, for me, what I've learned over the years is rather than being but have we thought about, it's more of, okay, let's use my perspective of playing devil's advocate to say, okay, this is how we work through this challenge, this is how we could work through this challenge. And it becomes more about preparing, supporting, using our voice and our perspective to chug through some of those difficulties that we're seeing as we play devil's advocate.
Yeah. Like for the door knock, we kind of mentioned using Snapchat or phone numbers, so we worked through that a little bit. I mean, we could still do it though. I don't super care.
Yeah.
I'm passionate devil's advocate.
Yeah, and there's also this place where it's like that's clearly other people are super passionate about that. But there's maybe I should let them be passionate about it, and I'm gonna point myself over here. So it's again, sometimes we feel like, especially when we're friends, we're like, well, we all have to do something. So we're either all in or we're all not. And that's not necessarily the mark of a good company, of a good organization, of a good, whatever. And so yeah, I think it's always about choosing your battles.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah. But I appreciate that, brother. I love your self-awareness. Thank you. Someone else, what's one thing that you're hoping to do, or that you'd like to try because of this?
I think for me, it's just as simple as like communicating expectations, like you said, about like having those unsaid expectations of like people and how are they supposed to meet those when we don't communicate them. And I think it's easy for me to be like, well, why didn't you do it this way? Or like, why didn't things go this way? Because I've been, I don't know, like doing this job for a little while and like it makes sense to me, but then when I don't explain that well to like my staff, then how are they supposed to like meet everything that I'm looking for? So just like a realignment of that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, especially with a brand new staff, right? Like it's I thought I went over this. They're like, oh wait, that was last year's a different people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally did that a bunch as a hall director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Years start to blend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
I liked your ice climber story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
I
of course.
think-
As an ice climber yourself.
I think one thing is you talk about being pulled up versus teaching people how to get up. I think part of your role as both like a leader and a follower is ensuring that you, in both roles, are ensuring you're like teaching how to climb or learning how to climb.
Yeah.
And keeping the leader or being the leader, like you have to be honest with yourself about that.
Mhm.
So I'll work on that.
I love it. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. And keep climbing. Yeah. Madison.
I also went with the appreciation. I liked the people never get the flowers when they can still smell them.
Shout out to Kanye. Great. That's awesome. Is that something that in your history, like when you were on hall council, is that something that, do you think you all were pretty good at that, or is it something that you could have used a little, in hindsight, like maybe a little bit more attention to that could have been helpful?
I think you can always give a little more attention to that, but I think overall we've done pretty well,
Awesome.
but more is always better.
Yeah. Blake, how you feeling, brother?
I'm good. For me, a lot of it's focused on the affirmation because I think I recognize the importance of that, like, kind word when we're having a hard time, or I think appreciation also comes in the form of like a quick joke or a way to like ease that stressful tension or the hurt feelings or anything like that. And so that's always something that I try to do more of. I never feel like I do it enough. And so I think that's constantly something that I'm working towards for myself, as well as like challenging my people to try to, like you said, leave a legacy. That's very much something that's always been kind of part of my approach to student leadership, is leaving a place better than you came to it. And that's how I've approached my position as advisor as well.
I love that, brother. Thank you. Well, sweet. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. If you want to stay in touch, I'm James T. Robo, and that's also my email, james@jamestrobo. If you have questions or anything like that, and you want to talk about it, feel free to just definitely let me know. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.